Guess we're a little bit early. Just a little bit. So, I'll take this time to fill up our palette the rest of the way. We're gonna paint, I think, Ellie Fanning or Fleming, maybe. Ellie Fanning? Ellie Fleming? I think it's Fanning. All right, anyway, you're watching Late Night Paint with Mike Packer. We're gonna paint this lady using these colors and some flat brushes. Nothing that you guys can't get your hands on right away, pretty easily anyway. Got my dog sleeping in the background there. I don't know, you guys can see her or not. She's just in that. Let me see if it'll focus the light. Yeah, you can't see her. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I know we're a little bit early. We're supposed to start at 9 o'clock, but give us some time. Thank you guys for the likes and all that. Let's talk about how we're going to do this today. So we want to look at the overall shape of her face, and if we were doing like a drawing on paper and we were following that method that you see where they draw the head and then they divide it in half and divide the thing in half, and they have all these, geometry sort of separations. But there really only works if the person is looking directly at you. It makes it easier. If you have a three-dimensional mind, you can kind of bend it. But this is how I see the thing, right? These are the main sort of areas that I'm going to be focused on. It's like this real dark area, the eyes, the side of the nose, right? And that's basically just this here. And so getting those spots right, like even if you look at this and squint your eyes, you can see, basically who it is. So that's how we go about doing that. And so we'll start out drawing this forehead spot right here. We're going to use flat brushes today, like every day, actually. That's pretty much all I've used are these Escoda Modernista brushes made with the synthetic mongoose, I believe, the mongoose. And I'm drinking coffee. You got to make sure and have your coffee labeled so that you don't accidentally do something you regret. Even though we are using oils, I also have a little jar of oil paint right here of, linseed oil. It's got 2026 on it. All right. And that's going to go right over here. And we're going to dip into that occasionally, like right now, just to get our brush wet so that we can start mixing up some of these middle tones. We're going to mix up 2 sets of colors for her, okay? We're going to mix up the basic general color and then the shadow color. So 2 colors, basically. If we look at our thing over here, there's really more than that as far as area goes, but we're going to be able to adjust by adding a little yellow or a little blue or whatever we need to do. So let's get started with some red first. Get some yellow. I can tell this is probably going to be a little bit too much of an orange. I might take that out. Let's get a little more white. We'll see how good my mixing is. I'm going to put some of that there. Let's get a little bit of this blue. And so people sometimes ask, what colors do you mix to make flesh tone? You say red, yellow, and blue, and a little bit of white. Sometimes you it just depends on the flesh tone you're mixing, honestly. But, you can get it that way too. Let's mix all that stuff together. We should get a skin or some kind of a fleshy color. that we can lighten or darken, depending on how we feel about it. Squishing it out of the brush, you see how I'm kind of moving it out of there so it's not stuck inside the bristles. All right, that looks pretty good. It even kind of has a nice little pinkish tinge to it. Let's lighten some of that up over here with some of this white. Get us a nice light color going here. Let's get some of that extra off of there so we can mix it into the dark. All right, that looks like a pretty good pale color we can use to start. It's not quite her color. If I hold it up, it still looks a little bit off, but then my brightness on this thing is a little different, so maybe I can bump up the brightness. Let me see. Little dim, let's try that. Does that look any different? I can't tell. All right, so you definitely need some more blue. So we'll dull it down with this blue. And we'll lighten it further with the white. And we'll get somewhere around this region right here. A little lighter. All right, that seems good. Let's go ahead and work on this forehead. Hold our brush at this angle here, right? And we'll just get that forehead marked in where we're gonna start. And we can imagine that our hair is gonna go up a little ways. And so let's move over here. We'll hold our brush at the same angle as the hair on this side, or the hairline, or whatever. And then we'll move it over, and that'll give us that little angle for our forehead. That helps you out a little bit. Let's look at the distance that this thing travels to, about there. Now this will change depending on how big or small you make your painting, right? Let's get a little raw umber. We'll darken this side here. A little bit. Just picture where those eyebrows are right there. Let's wipe our brush off so we can pick up a nice dark. Let's put some red in it so we can make it really dark. Put that in there. Let's get this other little spot smudged in. It's gonna line up right about where the point is, right there. Okay. Let's go ahead and get some nose action. See how it's lining up a little bit over from the point too? Something like that. We'll get those cheeks a little redder. And it's really red. Dull that down a lot with some white. Let's do that other side too. So we're smushing these colors all in there. We're trying to stay away from the really darks right now, but we'll get there. Let's get this dull sort of tone that's going on here on the mouth. So we have our situation kind of planned out as far as our basic colors are going to go. And this is not supposed to look like the person right now, of course. But when we're done with this, what you want to do is kind of make it look like a human is all you're going for. You don't necessarily want to try to make it look like the person just yet, okay? Now that we have all this paint on here, we can kind of smooth it out, get it in its proper orientation, right? Soften some bits, add a little extra color here and there. Let's get a little French ultramarine blue into the mix. It's going to make a nice little grayish color that we can use for some of these highlights inside of here. Oh, thank you for the wonderful gift there. I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Howdy, everyone. Cheers. Let's get going here. I'm going to get our darks in now. Red. Well, I say darks. They're just our middle tones, but they're darker than the lighter middle tones. Right? Let's look at this as all one piece, okay? It swipes all the way down. Let's get this little shadow put in there. It's got some red right inside here that's like very warm color. We get some darks for this edge here. Some cooler colors, I should say. And they're a little darker than everything else, but those in there, and we can just wipe our brush off so we don't have any paint on it and drag it right across those two paint strokes. Get that cleaned up real well. Soften these cheeks up a little bit. And let's go ahead and define out the side of our face a little better, since she's just spilling out into the universe here, right? Let's look at this temple region. This line that she's got going, it's not quite vertical. It has a slight inward, like it's leaning that way just a little bit, okay? So put that in there. Just slightly leaning if we can. We do our best. It's not going to be perfect, okay? So don't be too hard on yourself. Relax and enjoy the painting. Now we should be getting closer to something that might look like a human, right? Soften these paint strokes up some. We're getting there. We're kind of like in the alien region right now, but it won't be long. It won't be long. We'll get there. Let's get some hair in there. What color is this hair? It's blonde. So let's make it a little duller greenish color. Right. That's pretty close. She's got some roots or something showing on the other side. I don't know. Maybe it's like that new age stuff the kids are doing these days, you know, painting their hair different colors and everything. Get the ear in there on this side. We don't really have an ear showing over there, so we don't necessarily have to worry about it too much. Let's get this little situation of the part in her hair. That little hair spot there. It's actually like a really pale blue, so probably didn't need to make it that color. I enjoy painting so much. I just have fun with the process of making things look funny, and then they'll get there. Because at some point, you say to yourself, man, am I even doing this right? But after a while, you stop asking yourself that and you just paint. And for me, that happened a long time ago. And now, I paint all the time. And I'm very happy to paint all the time as well. All right, let's smooth out this edge of the face. Maybe soften that up just a little bit. Let's look how it curves in right here. Did we get that right? Potentially. get this part of her neck going in there. Fill all that up real nice and bright flesh tones. And I think we could probably start smoothing out some of this stuff because we need to get some definite shape going in the face. I might have made a little bit of a mess with some of these paint strokes, so let's smooth them out some. And just clean our brush off real well. And just paint into it. Soften across some of those paint strokes. If you're not careful, you can make all that stuff blend into one huge blended thing, and then it won't look like anything, right? So it'll just be blurry. Let's get this cheek right here. A little darker on the back. Oops, sorry, that was loud. It scared me. It was a clip. A clip that was stuck on the side of my thing and fell. All right, that looks pretty good. Some of these duller gray colors. Get that out of there. Guess I'm picking up a lot of those existing flesh colors. So I might have to make me a separate little pile of darks. Just for this spot here. And that cheek. It's got this kind of a cooler color on the inside of between the ear and the actual cheek, on that cheekbone, I guess. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's start figuring out these eyes. What do you say? This should be a fairly straightforward portrait, I would think. Very generalized type shades for everyone. So let's see if we can smooth out some of this stuff going on in here. I want it kind of dark. Let me get a smaller brush. I think I'm gonna need that. So we're using the 14 right now, which is a kind of rubbed out. This one I've been using for about, I don't know, maybe 3 months, but I use it every day and sometimes for hours a day. And it's held up really good. It's a good brush. The trick is you want to find a brush that has like thinner bristles, and it has a lot of bristles, you know? They're kind of tight, compact together. But anyways, what we're going to use next. A little linseed oil. It'll prime the brush. Gets it ready. All right, let me see what colors we have over here. So I could start painting in some eye sockets. I want to get some red. There we go. Move this up a little bit. Well, it was a disaster. I shouldn't have moved anything. All right, that's better. Sorry, guys. Let's get some of that red. It's a little light, and this thing I have on it is like a little plastic filter that kind of keeps the glare down a little bit. At least for the photo. For me, it doesn't matter. The glare is there. The glare is there. Let's get this cheek shaped out. That's a nice red color for this too. Feels good. Probably redder than it actually needs to be, but it'll be okay. Try to swoop that cheek in one shot. And we'll soften it up. Just pull the brush across that paint stroke a little bit. Let's get this dark spot right in here. Soften that up. It's just a little spot. Just a little spot. Let's do the eyebrows too while we're here. It's pretty good. Maybe we need to make them darker, but we could do that later. We could darken them up with a little ultramarine blue and mix it into that raw umber, and that's going to make a really dark color. Look how dark that is. Almost black. So it's dark. It's no Charlie Murphy, but it's dark. All right, let's get this right here. That's the spot. So we want to try to keep all of this dark. All right, we'll get this little section right there painted in. That's going to be much darker. You like the Charlie Murphy joke, huh? That was good. I like Charlie Murphy. All right, let's see. Little spot that comes down. Gives us a little edge. It's probably way too dark. Let's get a little bit of this light color and go right over it, and that'll put it back into its normal state of existence. All right. A little red for under this eye socket here. And now let's move to the other one. Look at the distance. Oh, wait a minute. Let's fix the middle part of her forehead before we go there. Because we want this angle right here in that little triangle. You see that little triangle that exists right there? We want that to show, because that's going to give us like some spacing for our eyebrows and our forehead. It's going to help us out. So it's best that we do that. Best that we do that. Soften some of this up here. So I see paint strokes everywhere. Paint strokes all over the place. All right. A little eyebrow color, some dark brown, maybe a little bit of that red. Let's see this angle of this thing here. Something like that. Of that eyebrow thing. And it comes down. Makes a little tiny little spot right in there. See, we'll keep our head straight up and down. Like more or less vertical, but it does slope inward a little bit. But more or less vertical. You can darken here maybe a little bit. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves with all that, because we got another brush for that stuff. It's going to be fun. I like working with the hair and stuff. That always brings me joy to just swoosh and swoop that brush around. You know what I mean? It's a lot of fun. Always puts a smile on my face. Let's get this little eye bag under this side here. See that little shadow that aims inward from the eyebrow? All right, let's get that in there too. Just like we did that side over there. We might even have to smooth that out a little bit with our smaller brush, but that's the shape we want to get in there, right? Let's get a darker color. Let's get this little eyelash angle, all right? Let's paint it in there. We can mess around and make it nice later. Don't get too caught up in stuff right now. We're just getting started, okay? Look at this little spot on her nose right there. You see where it falls in line right in between this edge and where our eye is ultimately going to be? Let's put our eyes in so we all can visualize where the eyes are going to be. Somewhere around there. We'll have to do it with a smaller brush, of course, but more or less. That's kind of what we're thinking about there. Cheers. Here's to Ellie Fanning. Man, the coffee's hitting tonight. Cheers, y'all. All right, let's see. Let's continue with our darks here. Now, what we want to do is just kind of put this spot of where the nose is. All right, so maybe the nose is right there. Okay. We're not trying to make the nose yet. We're just putting the shade where the nose goes. Let's go ahead and get some of the reddest red we have. The red. And let's look at where those lips are in relation to our nose, and let's just kind of guesstimate where those are going to go. All right? There, looks just like her already. Lighter bit on the red on the bare bottom there. Let's soften that up. Let's look at these cheeks here. This little angle that points right at the nose. Everything is going to tell you where it needs to go, okay? All these little angles and shapes and stuff, they're all going to point in a specific direction. Look at this one. It goes right up through that nostril and into the eye. Right up through the nostril and into the eye, right? And that little shape right there, it even kind of follows the cast shadow from her cheek. So if we look carefully, which we do, we're going to see there's a shadow edge on her cheek. The shadow edge is this darker section right here. That darker section. See, that's probably too much paint. And below it, there's reflected light. So we can get this a little smoothed out. And we want to get that direction proper as well. All right, looks pretty good. Nice and dark. Let's soften this up real quick. Just to keep everything nice and blended in as we go. We're taking our time tonight, just in case you guys are painting along. Let's get a little highlight going on the top of the mouth. Let's look. We have that same angle that we want to keep because we're just basically butting it right up against that edge of the face. And we can look at this sort of triangle shape that we have. All right? Let's look really carefully at that. Goes down, about like that. Goes this direction, along our cheek, little crease that we did that's aimed up at the eye, remember? Now let's look at the mouth. Or the line, the edge that abuts the mouth, right? So it's not quite horizontal. It has a little bit of a slope downward. So we want to try to emulate that same little angle, even if it's ever so slight. You can get away with it if it's off by about 0.4 or 0.5 degrees. Any more than that, then you guys are going to have to get a calipers or, some kind of measuring device, sit there, get your spectacles on and everything. America. All right, sorry, got carried away. Really, it doesn't matter. It's just get close, okay? There's a couple things that really you have a lot of freedom with in the portrait. One of them is the mouth. Believe it or not, because I guarantee you 10 seconds after this photo was taken, that's not how her mouth looked, She changed her position, she smiled a different way. So the mouth is always changing. So sometimes you can get away with having a little bit of a different mouth, But not too different. Not too different. Cheers, everyone. Sorry if I'm not reading any comments or anything. I'm just going through painting. I appreciate you joining tonight. I have my lovely, lovely moderator, Evelyn. She's the best. She's going to help out. All right, let's darken up. Let's intensify this edge a little better, because we're about to start shaping this cheek up, and we're going to need it to be proper. A little brighter, and it's almost got that like a little paler gray kind of a tint. It kind of gives off a greenish hue because it's gray. So whether you want to implement that and use it as if it was green and not just gray, then you can. Let's darken those eye bags underneath there. She's been out partying. All right, let's look at this little edge of her nose here, right? See where I was doing that? That's kind of what I'm looking at here. Making sure my little bits are back in their spots where I had them before. Like that little spot. From our blending, we sort of lost it. I want to say we could probably be all right with this area right here. We just need to darken the underside of the nose. So let's look at this. See that angle of the nostril right here? Let's do that. Let's look at where it's aimed at too. It's pointing somewhere around here, right? So maybe like that. Taking our time, measuring twice, and painting once. You guys do carpentry at all? It's kind of like that. So technically, since Jesus was a carpenter, if you're a carpenter, are you doing the Lord's work? You know what I'm saying? I just thought about that. Am I a genius? That needs to be a shirt. Some carpenter out there, make that shirt. Cheers. Watch it probably already be a shirt. Anyway, let's get working. Let's get this lip painted in. Remember, we have this little bit of a downward slope to it. Let's get it darker. A little darker. Ultramarine blue, some red. That's going to make it nice and dark. And let's look at just this corner right here. Pretty good. All the way down, and then this is nearly horizontal. So we can probably move it right across there. Let's keep that dark in there. That looks about right. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of this red. And this is not a pure red. It has a little bit of a yellow in it. So we're going to try and emulate that lipstick color. We'll get as close to it as we can. I mean, it's a very poppy red that she's got. So the red that I'm using is called a Perry Lane red. And it's a very versatile color. It's like an in-between of a warm red and a cool red. And I like it a lot. It's become indispensable. Just getting the edge of that in there. Let's do this bottom part here. Put that in there. Pretty good. I'll make a nice pale pink color to do the rest of her neck over there on this side. Get that color off of there. That looks decent enough. Let's see where that comes out, right about the middle of the chin section. Let's darken this side now. After we've done a lot of work here, this is looking insufficient, so let's get to that part. So we have our little shadow that we go in, that we put in there earlier, and now we're going to do this side here, just to kind of make that similar little look right there. And it's going to go down towards the chin, so let's make it go down towards the chin. Look at this little shadow that's just underneath the lip. We want to get that in there too, okay? Little dark, little spots of color. We can soften those up a little later. We have a smaller brush that we'll get to, and we'll be able to use very accurate colors for a lot of this stuff. But let's go ahead and fix this up a little bit. We may have been a little dramatic when we placed that one in there, right? Perhaps. Potentially. Get our brush cleaned off real well. We'll soften up a couple edges. And yeah, I think this chin, probably jawline comes in a little bit. So let's put in a little background here. I think like a dark green background maybe. Or like a grayish green would be nice. Let's try that. Add a little black, raw umber. Oops, got some black in that. Let's get some of this linseed oil to make the paint nice and wet. Can you guys see that? That little puddle right there? I know it's just off to the side here, but that is a really ugly color. I like it. Let's get some red in it. Make it like a dull kind of a mauve or something. I don't know what you would call that. But anyway, we use it to do the background on her. Just something not very chromatic. Actually, it looks like this color is actually in her face. Just little angles right in there. All right. That looks pretty good. And just get some background color in there just so that we could shape out the edge of her face. And we can even make this to where it just softly disappears into the background. That's an interesting like color right there. It's kind of pinky or like, I don't know what color it is, but it's nice. I like it. I'm gonna put some more right here. Let's get her ear back in there. Let's look at where that ear is pointing. All right. It's got this like almost little elfy kind of an ear going on. Sticking out so far, it's catching light from the other side of her head. I'm sorry. I'm not here to roast the models, you guys. That was fun, though. Cheers. Sorry, Ellie. You know I'm kidding. All right. Let me turn over my napkin. After you wipe a little while with your brush, you get this sort of a situation. You just turn that napkin on the other side, or, you know, you can have clean, slow napkin again. And when you're done, you can just let it dry and use it again. All right. Let's see. Let's get our brush nice and wiped off on that napkin so we can do this blending right here. I'm just trying to soften some of my paint strokes that I put in there, just on the edges where they kind of meet each other, right? Do I repeat myself a lot? I want you to remember. Let me get this cheek warmer, redder, hotter. That looks a little better. What do they call it? Faster, stronger, something better? I don't know how the words go exactly, but I know there's a song that exists like that. Okay, so we're starting to shape up. Now it's looking a little more like a human. Let's lighten up this middle part of her nose here. There we go. Let's lighten up the other side of her face as well. Those little bitty areas that we have going on right here. Little highlight that leads into the eye. That brush is a little too big for this stuff, but you know what? I'm brave. I'm gonna try it anyway. Let's see what we could do, what we can get away with. A little bit of white on there. We'll lighten that color up. And we'll see, maybe brighter. Let's see about lightening some of this stuff up right here. Spot in there. There you go. Soften some of these paint strokes up. It's a shiny, shiny forehead. I like it. Sometimes though, when you're doing a portrait of like a serious subject matter, here, let's take a break from my chat real quick. And let's make this angle of the eyebrow. Get it just right, okay? Anyway, if you're making a serious painting, right? And you're drawing or painting, you know, someone that's expecting to have a beautiful painting, right? You don't want to put very sharp highlights on their face, okay? Like, don't make really shiny noses and shiny foreheads and like this, like that little shiny spot right there. You don't have to do that. If it's there and you really want to put it in, go ahead. But generally speaking, you have an artist license, and most of the time your client expects you to use it wisely. You know what I mean? If you guys have portrait clients, highlighting these little spots here, we can soften them up in a little bit. But I just want to get those paint strokes in there right now, just the color where it goes, okay? Let's look at this side here. See how it swoops up? Gotta get that little edge of our face painted right around that nostril, and this brush is just slightly, almost the right size. It's just almost perfect, but could be smaller and I would be happier. Let's see if we can do some eyelids and some eyelashes, and let's get this little streak of light right in there. See how it's pointing, right? We want to always be looking at that sort of thing. Let's look at this one on this side. It's already got like a little spot there, so we can just make it a little more exact. There we go. It's not too bad. Let's see about this whole area right in here. It does need to be a little bit different color, just a little bit. I think that's pretty good right there. We probably do a little bit more to it. Like this pale, yellowy, orangey color, greenish sort of look. You guys know me, I love putting color in portraits. I love putting color in portraits. All right. See if we can get this little greenish cast color underneath there without making it too green. Just a little bit. Let's do this side over here. A little darker on this side, of course, the shadowed side. A little darker. We might need to get our ultramarine blue for this side. That super dark blue. Just so we can get a little bit of a grayish color underneath there. All right, wipe that off. Let's get a little light and we can kind of cut our little edge back in there. Let's look at how it slopes up and connects to the other side just slightly. It shows the orbital of her skull, right? So you can see, you know, her skull would be quite funny looking. Cheers. All right, so we're just about ready to move to a smaller brush. Let me get a couple more dark spots in here. One exists right here. Gotta get that. We're gonna make this sort of connect into the hair and everything, right? Into the hairline, I should say. So. Get some streaks in there, make it artsy, right? And since we have background in there, we can always just use that background color and shape up our head again. We can keep this as clean as we want, or as soft and blurry as we want. Like if we needed to, we could make this whole edge soft. I just want to get that angle just right. Little shadows across her chin before I move to another brush here. Smaller brush and then it goes quickly after that, honestly. Because once you have this portion of the face put in, then you're looking more or less at just defining out the little details in there, you know? Just the little details. Let's get a shadow edge on her chin here. And her jawline in the back. If we look, that shadow edge that we made earlier right here, remember that's the darker spot on your form. It's called a shadow edge. That's what we're going to call it here. There's a cast shadow. Can you see it? That cheek is casting a shadow. Let's get this little bit of red right up against that cast shadow. There we go. And with a smaller brush, we can punch in some really bright reds in here if we wanted to. And maybe we could do it with that brush. It's hard, but we can. We just got to be very careful. Get back to the shadow edge on this jawline. Right here. Everything past the shadow edge, you're going to experience reflected light. Reflected light. Lighten up this little edge just a little bit. Soften the edge of that paint stroke just by going across it with a clean brush. You just wipe your brush. You don't have to use paint thinner or solvents or anything like that. Yeah, the jawline is always going to be one of those things. Let's do a little reflected light on the back here. A little highlight. Little highlight. And then we have a reflected light underneath there, okay? That reflected light, it carries all the way from the chin to the back of the jaw, all right? Let's do that. Get a little light blue, potentially. You could honestly choose whatever color you want. But let's go ahead and get that in there. So we have this. We know it's going to come about right there. And swoop right across, okay? Give us a nice little reflected light underneath there. Let's get a little bluer. Just to dull it down. It's not going to make it look blue. It's just going to remove some of the chroma from the color, okay? Here, let's fix this neck a little bit. She's got a little reflected light on there as well from the sky or something like that. You know, it's going to look pretty. Let's get a little light color on there. That's my dog, Layla, that's sleeping in the back. If you guys are curious, she's always with us. Always with us. All right, and this side has also a shadow edge too. The shadow edge is just basically where your light ceases to become relevant. Because it hits here, it's exposed to all this side of the face, but then once it hits that shadow edge, it dissipates greatly. And then it hits whatever surface is over here and bounces back, and you have a little reflected light. And that's what we're working on right now, the reflected lights. So let's look at this. It's almost vertical. It's got a little bit of a slope to it. And this basically forms out the face on this side. with that reflected light, okay? We can darken this shadow edge if we want to, which we probably will get to darken that up with a little different brush. Let me get our hairline back in here. Little shiny spots on the hair. There's just some white paint. That side. There we go. Let's get a little more white paint. Just white. And let's lighten some of this to kind of tone down some of that vibrancy that is experiencing right there. Excessive vibrancy. All right. Let's get a smaller brush so we can start fixing up some of this stuff going on in here, okay? So we went from the 14 to the number 10, which is what we have here. And then we're going to use a 6. A number 6. All right. Let's get a little linseed oil. Now let's get right to work with this young lady here, okay? We're going to use some of our brightest brights now so we can really start shaping up these eyebrows and the eyelids and all the little details like the nostrils and stuff that we're going to really enjoy doing, right? So let's see what we can do, okay? We do have a little bit more of a highlight on the cheek right here. I'm going to get that in there. And that's going to lead us to this eyelid right there. Just put the spot of color in there. We have a small brush, so we don't necessarily have to make big areas or anything like that. Just little tiny spots of color is all we're looking at right now. Same thing here, this side of the eye, there's a little tiny highlight. And it eventually trails onto the cheek. That we've done with our larger brush. Okay. This eyelid you can't even see because it's in shadow. So let's put the shadow in there that the eyelid is making. We want to look at more or less where it's at in comparison to the eyebrow, right? So we're looking at this section that we just painted earlier, our eyebrow, and looking at the distance that that eyebrow is from the eyelid. See the spacing there? Let's get that spacing. Put that in there just like that. Go right across the top of the eye. Nice dark color. Right into our little, see how our highlight turns into that dark? So let's make the same thing happen here. There we go. Let's do the sclera of the eye. That's the white part of the eye. It's gonna go somewhere in there. All you need to do is a little tiny swipe. We don't need to struggle over it or suffer. We don't need to suffer over it. Looks like her eyes are a little bit red. She's got a little bloodshot eyes there. Looks like she got back from the cousin walk, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. She's out there traveling around with the youngsters. All right. That is enough coffee there. Let's see. Plenty of the coffee, you guys. Let's get this cheek nice and rounded. I feel like her face is a little chunkier. That's probably good. Chunkier probably isn't the right word, right? Is it? Probably is. I don't know. But either way, yeah, you know. Get the cheekbone in there. I did think it was a little too Virginia Slim. You know what I mean? I feel a little better about that. All right. Wipe that brush off a little better and let's start sculpting out some bags under her eyes here. I know. Everyone has them. Some people own them like they make it their, you know, like Frida Kahlo does the unibrow, right? Some people make eye bags their thing. And that's me. That's my specialty. A little darker. Maybe some ultramarine blue into the mix will do the trick. Just a little sliver. It almost is kind of all one piece right there. Right? Darken that eye up some. Let's darken the other one up too. And then we'll get a smaller brush and like fix them up. I know, you guys, I know. We'll make her look gorgeous when it's all said and done. Don't worry. You'll be like, wow, maybe it's Maybelline. The little highlight is going to sort of cut that eye off right there. A little bit of this light blue to go down into this area because it's got a light blue cast. Little sort of a tint of light blue. Same thing on this side here. Just ever so slight, little tiny bits. That's why we use the small brushes, so we can make these little tiny adjustments that we need to. Because when you get to this point in the painting, there's no changing where the eye is. It's there. And if you needed to change it, you would start over. Let's get this direction down here. And you can get away with adjusting the hairline or even the corners of the mouth a little bit, but overall, all of the preparatory work that we did in making the big brush marks and all that stuff, that was all basically so that we could place our features there. So we were preparing a spot for our features. And if we prepared that spot in the wrong place, then we need to prepare another place for it. And it's easier to do that by just starting over. Most of the time. Soften that shadow up right there. And I have started over lots of times, not on these lives, because these are just sketches. These are not going to a client or to anything. This is just a demonstration to show you how to go about doing a little oil portrait of a friend, family, maybe even a client at some point, you know? That's all. This is strictly for your benefit and my enjoyment. I enjoy painting. Hopefully you enjoy watching. If you do, give me a like, maybe even give me a follow so we could do it again. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be doing these, getting me some paintings done for you guys. And we'll really sink our teeth into some good stuff this summer. We have about 195 episodes that we've done so far. And just to make it a little easier on myself, I broke it up into 2 separate seasons to be 100 episodes in season 1 and then 100 episodes in season 2. And we are on episode 95, so we're nearing the end of this second season, which has been awesome. Been a lot of fun. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. We should have finished the second season sometime in February, but that's because instead of doing one stream every 3 or 4 days or every other day, I've been doing them literally every day. And I enjoy it. I really do. I have a lot of fun here with you. A lot of fun. Let's see how we can get this nostril painted in real well. This might be just barely a little bit too big. Just barely. Just a little bit too big. Yeah. But it's still fine. It will be okay. Get some little fleshy color in that little eye bag right there. That eye bag. Let's get some of this lighter gray color so we can highlight along this side of that eye bag on that eye. Bag. Oh yeah, it's working. It's working. Thanks for all the likes, you guys. Remember, whenever you're watching, if you click like as you're watching, your brain can't tell the difference between you clicking like and actually painting. So what you'll be doing is building neural pathways as a painter. And your brain is just going to be like, oh yeah, I'm painting this. And before you know it, like when you pick up a paintbrush, you'll just be a natural. All because you liked the stream. Isn't that amazing? It's neuroscience, I know. I didn't make it up. But if I did make it up, I would be a genius. But I didn't make it up. You can look it up. It's the truth. Hey, it's the truth, man. It's facts. Your brain can't tell the difference. It's facts. It's like those people that they just made them sit there and imagine they were working out. And then they compared their muscle mass to the people that actually did work out. And it was like actually better. And they were like, how'd you do that? And they're like, I don't know. I'm just thinking real hard about it. Yeah. But it's the facts. It's facts. Because you're using your motor part of your brain to click like. And your visual part of your brain is seeing painting. So the logic part of your brain is just saying, I'm painting. Like, isn't that cool? It's so cool, dude. Like, literally. But the trick is you have to really click like. I know. I'm just laughing at you guys' reaction, man. It's the truth, though. But thank you for following along. If you like the content, go ahead and share the content with one of your friends, you know. And if you don't like the content, go ahead and share it with one of your enemies. You know, share it either way with somebody. I appreciate the joy. Just lightening up a little bit more here and there. Same thing with this chin. And let me get this little shadow under the lip there so we can shape it out. All right, are you ready with your liking finger? Let's paint this bottom part right here. There we go. Oh, looks like I woke Layla up. That's my painting dog. She's here with me every night. Sometimes she snores when you guys are here. All right, let's start highlighting little bits of this. Get this part shaped up properly. There we go. You guys are exactly right. I've been doing this since the 90s. I've actually been doing portraits since the 90s, but I've been oil painting since around maybe, strictly oil portraits since maybe 2002, 2003, sometime around then. But before then, it was all pastel, acrylic, watercolor. And now it's all oil. And I'm wondering why I didn't mess with oil sooner. But probably the same reason you guys haven't messed with it is because you think you have to use solvents and all this like chemicals to make it work. But really that's not the case. All I use to clean my brush is some linseed oil that I have right here in this little jar. I'll just get a little bit of it and I'll palette the brush off to the side right here and get all the paint out of it with just linseed oil. You could also use olive oil or sesame seed oil, or basically you just need an oil. You want to use something not cooking oil. Maybe the cooking oil will make the paint dry too long. Perhaps like vegetable oil, All right, then we could just pick the extra up. All right, so let me move to a smaller brush here. Now I have my choice of a number 2 round, which is this guy, and a number 2 filbert, which is this guy, right? So depending on what I want to do, like the nostrils and stuff, I'll probably need the filbert to get in there. And then to do some of the eyelashes and maybe some creases here and there, I could use the liner. This gets a little bit of linseed oil painted onto this brush before we fill it up with paint. When you apply the linseed oil inside the brush before you go to doing your work, you'll make it much easier on yourself to clean later. So when you have to change colors or whatever, the paint won't be stuck to the bristles so vigorously. A little bitty highlight right here. And then it goes down. Soften that highlight up into the rest of the face. We can get a little bit of this red right on the edge and just sculpt in that lip a little better. It's very small. Small little area there. Then we have to sort of make that curvature. All right. Get a little tiny highlight, a shadow right on the corner of her mouth right there. And let's start getting these shadows a little more defined. Maybe that one's a little redder. The shadow here. Darken some of that up, a little darker than what it is in the picture, just so we can have some contrast. I could probably just lighten the background up as well. Just add some light back here. No, I think I like it better dark. Good thing is we could trade all this out and do whatever we want with the background. But anyway, let's do the eyes now. Yeah, because there is a little bit of a highlight right there, so maybe the darker bit is better. Maybe. Let's get this eye painted in here. But I noticed that if I do something in the painting that looks bad, I get like 1,000 comments. It's so great. It's almost like I want to do something to mess it up on purpose so I can get more comments. But thank you guys. I appreciate you looking out for me. I know you just want to see me succeed, and I appreciate that. Thank you for being here with me. You're the best. Oh yeah, sometimes, nobody's perfect. And out of, I don't know how many of these I've done here live recently, like 95 in this season. They haven't all been winners. I've had a couple that I didn't really like that I redid. One of them was Ronaldo. He's like a soccer player. Sorry, a football player. Football. Anyway, yeah. So, I wasn't happy with it, so I just redid it. I posted a video on that one as well. And then the one that I did over again looked a lot better. I felt better about it. Even though it didn't really matter, it wasn't going to any place or anything. It was just out of my own sort of recognizance. Is that a word? Yes, it is a word. Let's get this edge painted in a little better here. All right, let me get it a little dark so I could darken that background. I want to see her, the edge of her face. There we go. Put a little on that side so it didn't look too crazy. And I like the blue, actually. Get that off of my brush. There we go. All right, now we can see her a little better, right? We can also just get that little curvature on the inside of her jaw and make that more distinct with the background being very close to the color of this. Was not going to be easy to show that. So now with higher contrast, shows up a lot easier. We'll get our sclera put in there and our eyelid. We want that angle of this eyelid to go just like we see it there. As close to it as we can anyway. We have a smaller liner that we'll be able to use to get, exacting sort of movements if we cared to be that exact. Which we might be something we want to do. Let's darken up these eye sockets with this small brush. Little darker. Red and some of that black. It's going to make it nice. That might be too dark. Pick some of that up. And we got it really dark on that side. Extra dark. You'd be surprised how your eye will put the picture together for you as you're working. When you look back and forth and you're looking at your reference and you're seeing where your shadows go and how your face kind of forms, a lot of times you'll end up doing the right thing subconsciously, adding the right color in where it needs to be just on accident. Or what is seemingly an accident, but it's really your brain being so good because you were clicking like and you built all those neural pathways. Awesome. You'll be like, wow, I did that. And you won't even know how. It'll be like that one movie, right? Where the guy is like, it's just good and doesn't know why. Is there a movie like that? Well, there needs to be, and it's got to be about you. It needs to be your story. Thanks for all the likes, you guys. I appreciate it. Y'all are really amazing. Let's get the shadow side of her nose in here a little bit. That's a pretty good color there. Gonna go across the bottom like that. But if you look, the bottom has a little bit of that reflected light we discussed earlier. So we'll put that little sliver of reflected light in there at the bottom. Just a little sliver. Also a little sliver of highlight right on the back of her nose, on the back of her nostril right there. So see if we can get that without knocking out our nostril too much. Wiping off all the excess paint as I make a little stroke. Just like that. All right, let's see what we can do about these lips. We got a small brush now. We can get those pretty much exactly where we need them. Nice and dark on the corners. That's ultramarine blue, black, and just a touch of the red is the colors that are going to make that very dark corner of the mouth, and then we'll pull it right across into that red that we have there. Let's do the other side, but we're only doing the very bottom part of that lip, right? We're just doing that part. Because at the top, we want that to keep its very bright red, because that's seeing the light. So got a little bit of light color on there that I didn't mean to. Make sure your brush is cleaned off before you get to it. Sometimes there's little paints here and there, so it helps to keep your colors organized in such a way that you're reaching for darks and you're reaching for lights. I say that as I have a big old pile of white sitting over here on this side, you know. So anyway, just trying to help you guys out. All right. Shade the corner of this mouth up here like we did before. Oops. We just knocked out our lip a little bit. Let's put that back in there. There we go. And we can soften that up. We want to get a nice hot red right in here. Looks pretty good. We'll add a little orange to warm that little transition up too. So a little yellow into our red that we had. right at the edge, just to kind of keep it from becoming like a pink or like a muddy color. You know what I mean? So you can influence that transition by just adding a little bit of a primary, depending on what you want to do. You can turn it into a hue. A hue is just another word for saying something is close to a primary color. Like a red hue or a blue hue or a yellow hue. You're not going to have a black hue or a green hue or purple hue or anything like that. Thank you guys for all the gifts. I appreciate that. You guys are insanely generous. Thank you. But that's what a hue is, in case you never knew, or in case you wanted to know. It is a description of a color's closeness to a primary. So that's how you can determine. All right, so we might be ready to move on to our liner brush, but let me get a shadow edge crispened up right down here because I want it dark. It's got to be dark, y'all. Darkness, okay? And we can blend that out because all this is reflected light up here, so we don't have to carry that all the way up, but we do want to keep it nice and dark towards the end over here, so we want to use that same value. See, this is just as dark as that, so in our picture we want that to be matching as well. That might have been a little too dark. Just paint a little bit of that red into it and should be fine. Should be. All right, let's get this brush back again, and I'm going to soften that barbaric paint stroke that I just made. You know what I was thinking. Being so rough with it, you know. Got to be gentle. Oh, I'm just kidding. You ain't got to be gentle. You know that Jack Black song? All right, let's go ahead and get this going right here. All right. Painting in just these little edges of the ear and some of these just basic shapes in there, nothing serious. We're not trying to make it to where she can hear us. That looks pretty good. Maybe we touch a little bit of the white to get this ear highlighted again. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's get our little tiny liner. Let me find it. Where did I put it? Oh yeah, I stuck it over here because I knew I was going to need it. This is the number 2 round from Escoda. It's just about all worn off the paint because I hold it and I use this brush towards the end of our painting session to get the very darkest darks in there. This is when we're going to use our blacks. I know. They told you not to use black. It's because you probably shouldn't, at least not till the very end. And then when you do use it with the tiny brush so you don't use a lot. You know what I'm saying? Tiny brush. Okay. So let's get this corner right here painted in. Just a little black. That's very black. Probably blacker than we need. Do the eyelash. Darker. Looks good. Let's get this eyelash painted in. Just on the end, it's pretty dark. And then the iris is what gives us all of our deepness in there. Same here. When you start painting these blacks in there, they have to be very on point. Put them where you want them and put them in very small applications. Just small applications with a small brush. I'm going to add in a little bit of this grayish color right here for her eyes. I swear her eyes look like they're bloodshot, dude. She's been on that walk. She's been out there in the wilderness. In the wilderness doing Lord knows what. These kids these days. I tell you. Oh, did you guys hear? There's like, apparently Karen gets a break. We've got a new thing for, it's Jessica, apparently. I'm like, man, is it weird that I'm like friends with, people named Jessica and Karen? I think they're pretty cool folks. Let's get this eyelid painted in here, just the crease of the eyelid. Nice and straight across. Let's get a little bit of this color so we can darken the little eyelid there, or the orbital from the other side. And maybe we need it darker eyebrow. A little darker eyebrow on this side too. Let's get some of that black into the mix. Now that we've gone through our entire situation, we can add some colors in. Like what I mean by our entire situation is we've gone through all of our brushes, our large ones, and then all the way back down to our small ones that we're at right now. And in that, every time we went to a smaller brush, we got darker and darker and lighter, until ultimately you have a nicely composed picture with a lot of depth and a lot of opportunities for you to make adjustments and changes incrementally. You need to do those at specific times during the painting in order for them to actually be useful to you. Because if you don't make those adjustments at the right time, making them later will be nearly impossible, okay? So make sure you go along. And then if you don't make them right away and you're not, and you say, for instance, make the wrong sort of paint stroke or the wrong positioning, don't worry about it. Just keep painting, finish the thing out. Or scrape it down and start over. Either way, what I'm saying is it doesn't matter. Just enjoy yourself. Because you'll do another one. And that one will look fine. Then you'll do one after that. And that one will look good. And then as you go through, the more you do, the better they're going to look. The better they're going to look. The more you practice, even if it's just thinking about it, thinking about how to compose these little highlights, adding them in there where they go, making some of these, like clicking like on all those things make a difference. Let's get that little highlight in there. Has she got freckles? Looks like she might have freckles. Potentially. But yeah, what I'm saying is basically just keep practicing. Paint, enjoy yourself. Get everything, like in a situation where you can paint easily and keep a lot of little stuff handy so you can paint on. You don't want to limit yourself as to what you look. I have stuff like this that I can paint on. Like literally, I just, have things everywhere that I can do a little something on with some leftover paint. But keep it handy. Basically, make it part of your thing, okay? Because once you make it part of your thing, then guess what? It's your thing. And we all know what happens when something becomes your thing. Of course, you get super good at it. That's just what you do. You're very good at doing that. Anytime we focus on something, we usually have a good time with it. You'll enter a stage where you're so good and comfortable with it that it'll stop becoming a dopamine rush for you, right? It'll stop becoming a thrill. And then what you'll have to do is challenge yourself again some other way. Paint with a different light, a different shape, a different model. Basically, just change it up a little bit is what I'm saying, and that is going to make all the difference. Get a little blue in there, a little more blue actually. This is the cerulean blue. It's one of my favorites. It makes such a nice color. All right, let's see. We could soften this all up right here. Get our little cast shadow in there. Whenever I do a cast shadow, remember I was talking about like there's some things you can do to make a glamorous portrait. So this cast shadow, I want it to just vanish off of the face, like to blend out into nothing, right? I want it to just dissipate. I don't want it to be sharp or crisp or anything. I want it to be very soft. That's going to add a little bit of softness to the whole painting overall. A little extra softness. Add some redness inside of this shadow here. A little more. Let's get that little shape going right there. We tend to lose little details like that when we're sculpting everything out. We want to put that stuff in there with this small brush. With that little small brush. It'll do wonders for you. It'll do wonders for you. But you can't try to do too much with it. It's not a workhorse. It's just a little tiny highlighter, shadower kind of thing. You're just going to do little stuff, okay? It can be one of the more time-consuming parts of your painting, using the small brush, getting edges like that, making sure our little creases and everything are where they need to be. And this is the brush to do it. I wish I had some facts about this lady, but I really don't. I don't know anything about her. I don't even know her full name. But I know she was in like some movies here recently. I know that much. Let's get that little shadow going down this side here. That's from that eyelash. Since we have the shadow from this eyelash in there, we want to be fair. Let's darken it up a little bit. And we can pull that little bottom eyelid highlight across there. Make that really nice. I do want to soften this up a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have made it so crisp, but I think it's fine. Soften this little edge here. These almost connect if you look, almost, we can just sort of blend them together, but not really, just in the direction of each other. Just in the direction. Let's get this really dark part in there. Little darkness right here too, and then I think we're pretty much at a stopping point. We're gonna have to get a little bit of highlights, little blings on her eyes and stuff, but we're just about there. We did pretty good today, you guys. We made it about an hour and 30 minutes. I was trying to take my time because, you know, I know that I do have a couple people that paint along with me, and that's really amazing to me. It's so awesome. I love it. So if you paint along, hit me up. I would love to see what you did. Tag me, send it to me, whatever you want to do. I would love to see it. It makes all of this worthwhile. Like everything that I'm doing here is literally so I could see you guys doing work. I don't know why. It's not my fault. It's just how I am, you guys. I'm sorry. So indulge me. Paint along with me. Let's have some fun. Paint along with me. Give it a try. You never know. You might be hot. Might be the next America's Next Top Portrait Artist. And that, don't they have like a UK painting program on TV? Like UK's Top Painter or something like that. I've seen a YouTube show here and there. But they get like 6 hours to do a painting. You guys would be able to do that, and you know, using my method right here that I'm showing you, you'd be able to knock it out in no time, man. You can win that whole show. Do it for the team. Get out there and make something out of yourself. God damn, represent America. Like, I traveled all the way from Texas to paint you and your face. Get a nice bright highlight on that forehead right there, since we've really just not gotten to it. That might be a little too bright, you know, but hey, sometimes that's just how it is. Soften the edges of that up. There we go. Let's get some of these crisper little highlights that start showing actual face edges. See little bits here and there? Now that we have our smaller brush, we can start getting the real bright highlights in there. Because she is kind of shiny, you know? So we want those shininesses to come through. And we can still do it in a tasteful way. We don't have to like make her look like she's made out of plastic or something. All right. So whenever you're shading and highlighting, the crisper your highlights are, the crisper your shadows are, the more plastic and glossy the surface is going to look, if that makes sense. You'll be doing more reflections than shadows, if you follow me. So that's why when you see lips, there's often like a really crisp little highlight there. It's because they have all that gloss and they want it to be, you know, look like shiny and like juicy. So they have like sharper highlights there. Let's go ahead and get this yellowish red put back, like that color that we had. Very vibrant red. I like that. That's very nice, very nice. Let's make it a little wider. There we go. Let's get that pink in there. Go. Get the pink. Get the pink. Where's that pink at? There we go. Perfect. Apply it there. I think we're pretty good with this one. We can do some stuff on the hair, so let's do that. Little tiny streaks. Get some highlights in there. Get a little linseed oil. We can make our paint super juicy, nice and wet. And if it's a little pink, I'm sure it'll be just fine. You like that? You can add those little highlights across there. Still going to be very bright. This is where you can art it, right? You guys like doing stuff like this, I know it. Just have some fun with it. Let's get a little of this greenish color. Paint it in on that side. My dog is sleeping. That's what you guys hear. It's my wonderful Layla. My baby girl. She's like 15 years old or something. She's been around. Maybe it's 14 years old. I don't know. She's been around a long time. That's my girl. A little brighter yellow than what it probably is. So let me get some of this blue and just put that right in there too. Get some of those larger paint globs off of there. Right, so if you apply a paint stroke and there's like an edge to it, right, just take some time and soften that edge up a little bit, like you don't want a ridge like existing on your painting. It's going to make it hard for conservators and stuff if that's what they're going to have a hard time working around that. So keep your finish pretty nice. It's just easier. It's just easier. All right, let's get some of this greenish color inside this eye here. It's not really, I don't see it on the other one, but could be wrong too. Nice and smooth. Just like Layla's snoring. Imagine sleeping like that, just like no problem. That girl, she's got not a care in the world. There's nothing that's on her mind. She's just living life, knowing she's taken care of. That's a good dog. Good dog. I like that little highlight in there. Let's highlight this eye socket a little more. A little brighter. But definitely one of my more fun pieces, I think, that we've done here this week. You guys were a lot of fun today. If you have any questions or anything, just give me a shout. I'm here all the time. This has been Late Night Paint with Mike. We're going to go ahead and call it a day right here. And I'll be back tomorrow at around 9 p.m. and we'll see you then. Until then, you guys, much love and respect. I want to thank you for hanging out with me, of course. Give me a follow if you don't already. We'll be doing this again tomorrow. And yeah, just hit me up. Just let me know if you guys have an idea of who I should paint. I know I have a couple people chosen already, but I'm always open for suggestions. So you guys let me know. Anyway, much love and respect. Thank you guys for everything. I will see you tomorrow. Have